westernized and capitalized than they've been if we'd have stayed.
Many conservative writers this week, particularly since what happened in the prisons over there has become known, are saying that the fault lies with the liberal media, that liberal journalists are undermining our effort in Iraq. What is your take on that?
No, I think I don't think you can blame it on the media. I mean, I've had my battles with the media, so to speak, but and I think, if anything, my blame goes to the liberal and the conservative media, who once again both endorsed the war. You know, whether it was the New York Times and the major 3 networks or Fox News, I mean, they pumped up the people. And, of course, the radio talk shows did it, too. So they pumped up the people. So from my viewpoint, I don't distinguish a whole lot between the so-called conservative and the liberal media, because both of them, like both parties, endorse this idea of foreign interventionism and have lost their faith and confidence that non-intervention is a good policy and is worthwhile to pursue if we're interested in peace.
There's something different here. We were attacked by terrorists, by militant extremist Muslims who are still trying to kill us. How would you deal with the war on terror?
Well, you know, I think first thing, we should be very cautious in our definition, because if you listen to the radio talk shows, they glibly say, we have to be there because they're trying to kill us. But they don't define anything. Sure, there's some people trying to kill us, but the Iraqis weren't trying to kill us. So we couldn't use that argument. Somebody else was trying to kill us. What we ought to try to do is understand, why were they trying to kill us? And they give us a pretty good hint as to why they were. But immediately after 9/11, it was pretty well confirmed that the Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden did the deed, and that they should be attacked. I voted for the authority for that, and even the funding to go specifically after those who perpetrated the crime. But in a way, our foreign policy got distracted because they had this other issue, and we have spent too much time and energy in Iraq, which literally has created more enemies. The Al-Qaeda gets to skip off into Pakistan. At the same time, we do the worst thing in the world. We take over a Muslim Arab country, and then with this prison scandal, we have, unfortunately, the policies we follow has fallen to the benefit of Osama bin Laden, because the recruiting effort now is just tremendous. So I think the unintended consequences of this are just overwhelming, but also the ability of those who really wanted this war for other reasons aren't capable of stepping back, because they would have to say, you know, we really messed up, we made a mistake, and we ought to pursue another policy.
I saw President Lyndon Johnson come to grief, lose his credibility over Vietnam. Do you think President Bush has any credibility left on Iraq?
It's interesting. If you did a poll in my district, I imagine the large majority would still say that we got to support our president and we got to, you know, stay the course. But when I talk to them and take a position which is different, it doesn't offend them. And, you know, they sort of nod their heads, and they don't hold it against me that I actually have a different foreign policy. But there's still a fair amount of support. But I think obviously the polls are showing in this country there's a lot less. Matter of fact, back in September of 2002, 1 month before the election, I did a little speech on the floor, a 5-minute speech, talking about the politics. I sort of was being cynical, and I said, you know, nobody cares about the Constitution. Nobody cares about my views on non-intervention. But let me talk about the politics of it. And I went through, you know, and I mentioned Lyndon Johnson and others. And, you know, I said, it's not even good politics, even though on the short term, I admitted it could be. And it did. It helped the Republicans in 2002. I said, but long-term wars hurt. They have hurt. Republicans have come in after Democrats have been involved, whether it was World War I or the Vietnam or Korean War. So I said, war, you have to be careful. I say, in a practical sense, war is not popular politically because there's always a cost. People die, and there's an economic consequence, and it hurts the economy. And that didn't get any attention either, but I thought maybe I could get their attention on the politics of war.
I watched the Democratic Party come apart on Vietnam, Congressman Paul, and in this Washington Post this week, the conservative, very conservative columnist Robert Novak writes, quote, "The Republican Party is displaying symptoms of a nervous breakdown. Do you agree with that?
I think to some degrees there's a split even among the neocons. Those who promoted the war are splitting off from the president and giving him less support because we're not being aggressive enough. So in some ways we have conservatives who think the Republicans are spending too much on entitlements, and we have some who think they're not strong enough and militant enough going after this nation-building project. And, of course, my position is that we spend too much on entitlements and we spend too much on war and the military, and I think we should save a lot of money. My only compromise on this philosophy is I would cut the overseas spending, whether it's military or foreign aid, bring it home, take half of it and put it toward the national debt, and use the other half for those projects that lend itself to some benefits for some people in this country, even like the Corps of Engineers. I'd rather build highways here than pretending that we can nation build in Iraq.
Congressman Ron Paul from Texas, thank you very much for being with us on Now.
Thank you, Bill.